Whoever is listening, guys, welcome back. My name is Grayson Mann, and this is the Man with the Plan podcast. This is going to be an interesting week. We got two episodes. So this is episode 103, and episode 104 will drop on Friday afternoon or Saturday morning, depending on when we can get things filmed. It really just depends. I have to kind of check. Me and Fax are still kind of working on a timeline for when we're going to film. If it's earlier in the morning, I'll try to get edited before I leave for Wake Forest on Friday night or Saturday morning. That is also still being worked out. But yeah, I'm gonna go. I'll be at the game. So if you want to follow my Twitter, it's at Gray_man21. I post live updates during the game. I'll be up in the press box and on the field. So that's something I'm very excited for and very much looking forward to. So today we're going to talk about three things. We're going to mainly stay in the AFC East bubble, and then we're going to go to the NFC West. We're going to recap the Miami Dolphins game, Tua's crazy turnaround, and how I potentially think there's a spark that's been lit with Tua Tagovailoa. We're going to talk about the 49ers. Their gamble has paid off with Jimmy Garoppolo, with Trey Lance going down for the year, and how Buffalo might be just a Super Bowl favorite squeeze in. And Tennessee may need to look to Malik Willis very, very soon. So, crazy NFL week 2. I know you guys are excited as much as I am. This is actually our first podcast face to face, me talking to you guys instead of me having a guest on in a while. I think it's actually been since episode 100, which was crazy to think that was probably a month ago. So, a lot of things revolving around this show. I'm going to always try to keep the post weekly. That's the goal. Once a week, NFL, college football. Clemson football's 3-0. We can talk about DJ too if you guys want me to, because I love talking about Clemson. I will be doing cover 2 with Patrick tonight. At the time of this recording, it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Gonna get this recording done, edit it tonight, and get it out Wednesday morning when you're listening to this podcast, hopefully on your way to class, on your way to work, or whenever you listen, because it's up to you, man. But guys, thank you as always for tuning in. Let's get into Tua and that game. Holy cow. I don't think there's been a quarterback that has been as just hated on as Tua. And it's crazy because Tua never, usually hate is associated with done like a crime, done something wrong, just a bad guy. Tua's a good dude. And so I remember back in 2020, 2019, when the Dolphins were tanking. Now, it's not really a secret. They started off, it's not a secret because there's documented evidence of them actually trying to tank. And Brian Flores famously was like, nah, I'm not doing that, man. I'm definitely going to do it for football. I got to play these games out. The tank for Tua mantra kept flying around the league. It was like an email. Everyone was getting it. It was crazy. I remember I heard it. Dolphins fans were saying tank for Tua. There was the tank for Trevor stuff too. But Tua at Alabama was a different quarterback. He was accurate. He was able to just lead his receivers. And granted, he had a plethora of options to work with. So we all kind of thought, okay, really accurate quarterback. He's pretty talented. He's not the most flashy guy he's not a Lamar Jackson type, but hey, he'll make it work. It'll be okay. Gets to the Dolphins in 2020. And I remember this so vividly. I made a podcast episode almost 2 years ago from December. So this December 2022, 2 years ago, I made an episode coming back from vacation going, guys, we need to give Tua a chance here. And it was more like a message to Brian Flores, even though just my mom and 2 other people were watching the show at the time. It was like, hey, let's give Tua a chance to kind of work this out because he's splitting reps with Fitzpatrick. They're pulling him late. He's not really getting a chance to develop. So I was like, well, once Tua gets his feet settled, so this is year 3, because last year was year 2, I believe. Year 2 because he was in 2020 draft. So this is year 3 for Tua. And it's just never really felt like he's gotten a fair swing with the NFL. Because last year there was a bunch of controversy. There was the whole Deshaun Watson rumors. There are all these different factors that have really put Tua his back against the wall before he even really deserved to have it there. So every single opportunity people get, it was the Tua slander. You are on Instagram, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're talking about meme pages, talking about beat writers, columnists, TV analysts, Tua was always the butt of the joke, the underthrows, all this stuff. And I was part of it too. I was a Tua hater. And he always seemed to beat my Patriots. So it was always something and I was like, man, how does he do it? But this offseason, they notably signed They traded for Tyreek Hill. They paid a profit for him. And Mike McDaniel's the new head coach following the Brian Flores situation. Miami looked like they had a new direction and a guy that really believed in Tua for really what feels like the first time. He has a coach that was really handpicked him, saying, "You're my guy. We're going to keep it that way." So, case in point, with Tua, it's this is the season. Everyone was saying this is the season for you to really show what you got, for you to show your stuff because it's now or never. It is now or never at this point, man. And when you have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, a plethora of running backs, you got to make it all work. And it felt like on Sunday when it was 35-14, it felt like we were seeing the same old story being played out. Tua made some really, I don't want, it was really erratic throws, not the best decisions with the football. There was a decision that he made to just kind of chuck it up to Tyreek Hill, and it was picked off in double coverage. I don't think it was Kyle Hamilton; it was another safety. But you were thinking, okay, we know how this was going to play out. The Patriots in the Miami game, I didn't take too much stock into it, even though the Patriots struggled. The Miami Dolphins didn't move the ball down the field, minus 147-yard touchdown pass to Jalen Waddle. The movement wasn't too efficient. So I was thinking, okay, this is kind of the struggle fest in the hot and humid hell known as Miami. So you took it as, well, one team won and one team lost. New England's got things to work out, but so does Miami. So you go against a really talented team like Baltimore that went 8-3 before all the disastrous injuries. And your thought process is, well, it's 35-14. Baltimore's in control of this game. Let's chalk it up next week. They play Buffalo, who looks really, really good. And we're going to talk about them in a second. But then something changes. Mike McDaniel starts to simplify it. And I was listening to a podcast. So it was kind of making a joke about it. But in a way, it just seemed pretty simple. Too simple not to try out. It was basically the play Madden option where they just like, you know what? We have Jalen Waddle, we have Tyreek Hill, two of the fastest receivers in the NFL, maybe period. Use them. So they were just send Tyreek Hill, send Jalen Waddle, send Tyreek Hill, kept them going. And they allowed Tua, which he always displayed at Alabama, which was his deep ball accuracy. No matter what you want to say about his arm strength, his ball placement skills, especially on the deep ball, he's pretty good at it. You famously are Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs. Those guys were always getting balls in the right spot from Tua. Tua always put in the right place. Accuracy guys. I mean, we saw with Mac Jones too with deep ball accuracy in Alabama. There's a formula there that works with those guys, especially with that receiving core. So you give Tua these weapons and you see it work out, and they have this crazy freaking comeback. I can't believe it. But I think it's not about the comeback, it's about what can come because of it. It's what Tua's career could become because of this comeback. And I just kind of repeated myself in an odd way, but that spark, because I feel like for the last 2.5 years of his career, he's kind of been in this one spot. You look like a graph, and it's like it's not really a straight line. It's more like this. And if you're on YouTube, you can see my hand movement, but I'm just using like a horizontal. It's not going up, it's not going vertical, it's just straight. There's nothing. You may see a slight dip or slight curve, but nothing too crazy. This could be that crazy shift that sends his career up in this really great trajectory that I'm very excited about. Even though he's a division rival, great guy to root for. The guy that can overcome everything that's been thrown at him. Sean Watson rumors, slander, all this stuff on the internet that I'm sure he probably doesn't pay attention to, but it's great to see. And that comeback could be that spark where he goes, "Hey, I can do this." 4-7, I think it's 468 and 6 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, and those 2 interceptions need to be cleaned up. But 6 touchdowns, that doesn't happen very often, and usually that's not a fluke. And we have those Matt Flynn examples, Mitchell Trubisky examples. Maybe Tua's the next one, but I don't really think that's the case. I think this is the turnaround for number one in Miami. Sometimes all you need is a spark, and Baltimore on Sunday against a really talented AFC team that I thought was going to win the division, and probably still think so based on what I've seen with every other team in that division. I think this could be a real spark saying, hey, if I can do this against the Ravens, I got Buffalo at home next week. I'm not going to pick them to win, but I think Tua has found that secret sauce, what makes it work. Very excited about it. So we'll see. We're going to check back in on him probably in a couple weeks. If they end up getting destroyed in Buffalo, or Buffalo ends up rolling them, which could very well happen, we'll have to revisit it. But right now, I think this could be that spark. I'm going to leave you with that. So I'm going to take a short break. And then when I get back, I'm going to talk about the 49ers gamble paying off. And then we're going to talk about the Bills' destruction of Monday Night Football. Thank you, guys. Jimmy Garoppolo is now the starting quarterback for the 49ers. Their gamble has officially paid off. Trey Lance looked like the guy of the future, but now, how certain really is that? So with Trey Lance, it's been a revolving door, kind of like Tua in a way, where his career has always been for the last couple of years. And Trey Lance, this is his second year. Last year as a rookie. It felt like that last year. It was kind of like how it was like the Aaron Rodgers plan. We're going to sit you for a while. We're going to see how you develop. You're definitely a talent we need to stick around with and keep, but we want to just develop you for a year, maybe two, depending on how Jimmy Garoppolo does. They felt like he did enough to let Jimmy Garoppolo explore his options, and it ended up not coming to fruition. He ended up coming back for a $10 million deal, and it seemed like he was just kind of sit around until a team wanted him back, wanted to trade for him, wanted to take his value into a new place, a new franchise. But Trey Lance, for one game, it was an ugly game in Chicago. You can take it for what it is in a monsoon, and he ends up breaking his ankle in a gruesome injury. I don't really recommend that you look it up, and I stupidly did it just because I was like, oh, I have to see this. And then I was like, I don't want to see this. But Trey Lance is out for the season. It is Jimmy Garoppolo's team. And man, I don't think he was happy, obviously, about the injury, but man, was he and Jimmy Garoppolo was in great spirits. And I think it's just been everything that he's had to go through with his career all of last year. No matter what he did, he knew that Trey Lance was in the door waiting for Garoppolo to leave so Trey Lance could take over. Ooh, you know how you have those moments where you're about to sneeze and you don't sneeze, and I'm like, I had that right before I recorded this, and now if you can see me on YouTube, I'm like looking like I'm a crazy person. I'm blinking a lot, but yeah, the 49ers fans probably held their breath for a while, but what a great situation for San Francisco because they have a quarterback they can throw in who knows the system, knows the offense. Kyle Shanahan, I believe, is 31 and 14 with him as a starter. So there's an obvious positive rapport there between the two. Garoppolo's been to a Super Bowl, an NFC championship last year. You could argue it dropped interception away from another Super Bowl appearance. And who knows, they maybe could have won. That pass rush versus the Bengals could have been a really interesting matchup to examine. But yeah, the Jimmy Garoppolo is definitely not a bad option to have around. I don't think the 49ers plan for Trey Lance to have this kind of injury where they go, hey, if Trey Lance suddenly breaks his ankle, we got Jimmy Garoppolo waiting in the aisle, ready to go. He was the perfect understudy for the San Francisco 49ers team, and I think it's going to reward them handsomely. I think this is a division with Seattle struggling. They're obviously in rebuilding mode. The Cardinals are a weird mess that I really didn't believe in the start of the season. I certainly still don't believe in now. And the Rams are really odd because I thought they had it all figured out. I thought they just ran into a juggernaut in Buffalo, and then they looks like they take care of business against Atlanta, and then they fell apart. It was almost like watching the Falcons, but on the West Coast. It was crazy. And sorry for the shot, Falcons fans, but it happened. It was crazy to see. So this is a 49ers team that their season, it's not like Cowboys where when Dak Prescott is down for 6 to 8 weeks and you bring in Cooper Rush, eventually Cooper Rush is going to get outmatched. He's going to he's going to face an NFL team where it's just not going to, the pieces are not going to come together. For Jimmy Garoppolo, as a backup, his value it almost skyrockets more than he was a starter. It is the perfect situation for San Francisco. I have so many prayers out of Trey Lance, though. It's a gruesome injury to go through, and his career looked like he was really getting ready to take off. He's got such talent, great arm talent. I don't know if he had put it all together just yet, and there was a lot of potential sitting there. But for Jimmy Garoppolo, it's a great opportunity to prove himself and continue to boost his value. Either San Francisco makes another playoff run like they did last year, because Garoppolo is that perfect game manager that has all the weapons. They have Debo Samuel. They have George Kittle when he's healthy. They have a fantastic defense. The key is when they're healthy. They have all the pieces to really put it together. Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo, like I've said before in this segment, they have the rapport to make this work. So there's a lot of good you can take away from. Not many teams have this kind of situation where one quarterback's waiting and he can just as easily win a Super Bowl or compete for one as well as the starter can. That's a rare situation to find. And I think the San Francisco 49ers, looking back on it, are going to be very pleased that they made this decision. John Lynch is going to be very pleased that he made this decision to keep Jimmy Garoppolo. This is going to be a really great test to see how this works out. And I think this was a weird year for quarterbacks too. Everyone felt like they had theirs solidified. So if Jimmy Garoppolo can have a great year, he might be that one of those top quarterbacks when he becomes a free agent in February or March, whenever the period ends for him, he could be one of the top quarterbacks on the market. Still relatively young, could still play maybe 2, 3, 4 more years of great football, game manager football for a contender that just needs a quarterback that is going to take care of the football, can make good throws, not make terrible mistakes, good decisions. Garoppolo is not a bad option for a team. I still think he's a top 16 quarterback in this league. He can make all the throws. He doesn't have to run with his legs, and this offense is tailored to a quarterback that can just game manage. I mean, he won the NFC Championship throwing the ball 7 times, not because of he couldn't, but because they didn't need him to. And when he was called upon, he took him to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game. He took down Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay in the snow and almost beat Matt Stafford and the LA Rams Super Bowl champs, who they have given problems in the regular season. So there's a lot of things. If you're a 49ers fan, you got to be hopeful that your gamble, you got to be excited that your gamble paid off. Sad about Lance and that prospect, but know you got a guy that's probably more NFL ready than the guy you had started. It's not a bad situation to be in. All right, so we're gonna take another short break just because I need to get a glass of water and I need to sneeze and blow my nose. We're gonna talk about Buffalo and their dominance and why I think I have them shoehorned in for the Super Bowl, and why Malik Willis may be the Tennessee Titans starter very soon. All right, this is Man with Plan podcast taking a short break. So last night there were two blowouts in the NFL. The Eagles, who are looking really, really good right now. Jalen Hurts is making significant progressions within his game. Primetime Kirk Cousins reared his ugly head once again, and the Eagles took care of business. But the one game that I was really paying attention to, one because my roommate, so Jacob, if you're listening or watching this, I feel bad for your fantasy struggle last night because I was on your side, but Jalen Hurts could not get 40 points, which is it's a shame, but at least you got your guy for the rest of the season. So I wouldn't be too worried about the loss. For the Bills, wow, that's crazy. I think there's a lot of things you can take away from it. You can go, man, what a butt kicking, man, what this, man, what that. What can I really say about Buffalo other than, man, they were great. That Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He moved the ball well. This Buffalo team is gelling on every phase of the ball, creating turnovers on special teams, defense, moving the ball really efficiently on offense with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. James Cook is starting to find his own. It feels like the team is really coming together even better than they have in the last couple of years. This Buffalo team is scary. They took down the Super Bowl champs. They took down the number one seed in the AFC like it was nothing. They're like the Thanos, and not to be a Marvel nerd, but like the Thanos of the NFL right now, just blowing through people like it's nobody's business. It's the scene. I'm gonna go full nerd. It is the scene in Infinity War. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Thanos has all the stones, or he has 5 of the stones, and he's trying to get the last one, and everybody's trying to stop him, and he's just blowing through everybody like a piece of paper. That is Buffalo right now. He's not even having to break a sweat trying to do it. So the rest of the NFL is in trouble there. But this is more about Tennessee. This is a weird situation. Before the season started, I was just like, man, Tennessee is a 1 seed last year. Let's really examine that. It's Ryan Tannehill, and it's that defense. It's Mike Vrabel doing all he can as a coach. I just never really, Tennessee's been so underwhelming to me, especially with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. I always felt like it just was never really there. And I know that there was a lot of injuries on that team last year, and that the Bengals just kind of came out of nowhere. But man, I still felt so overwhelmed. I know they didn't have Derrick Henry, and they have him now, and they're 0-2. And I think it might be time to can Ryan Tannehill. I think last year it was 1 touchdown, 3 picks. You're the number one seed in the AFC. You got to find a way to make it work. You got Derrick Henry in company, and you trade away AJ Brown, and you get Traylon Burks, who looks fine. I don't know if he's an AJ Brown. Robert Woods, who's recovering from ACL. So they tried to retool this Tennessee Titans team, and in 2 games they have just looked very, very underwhelming. Not a lot of things to really brag on them about. I've never really been a Ryan Tannehill guy at quarterback. I thought he was like a lesser version of Jimmy Garoppolo, a game manager that still makes the same bad mistakes. And to be completely honest with you, I think it could be high time for Malik Willis to come in pretty soon. Let's say the Titans start 0-3. Let's say the Titans start 0-4. it may be time to just kind of see what Malik has. Ryan Tannehill's getting older. I believe he's 35, 36, starting to get to the tail end of his career. I know it was a close game at halftime. It was 17-7 last night. And it could also just be that Tennessee ran into two great teams and they just got their butts kicked in that sense. But man, did Tennessee look incompetent last night? It may be high in time for Malik Willis. I would be excited to see it. He's not the quarterback I expected to start just because I believe Tennessee would still kind of figure it out within that sense of the season. But it's I just don't know, man. Tennessee has been so freaking underwhelming. It's a scary realization to have because I had a lot of, and like I just said, I have had a lot of reservations about this team. They lose to the Giants in week 1. And the Giants are 2-0. They may be a really good football team, but the Giants again, there's still that's a developing, rebuilding team. Tannehill threw some interceptions in that game, and in this situation, they just looked outclassed. Maybe there just needs to be a spark. Maybe there needs to be something that's pushed because I believe Mike Vrabel's a great NFL coach. What he did with that team last year was very impressive, despite the fact that they lost that divisional game. They've had some struggles in the playoffs. They had a home game against the Ravens in 2020. They lost that. They had a home game against the Bengals in 2021. They lost that. There just has been a lot of, besides that AFC championship run, there's been a lot of stock up and then your stock goes way down. And it just feels like there's no consistency or balance for this Tennessee team. They have always had a great defense, always had a great run game, but when it's all on Tannehill, it's not really able to get done. And I think there could be your spark with a very talented quarterback who's kind of like Trey Lance, who's a very much of a project, but has all the tools to potentially make it work with a guy like Mike Vrabel. So, guys, thanks for listening to the Man with the Plan podcast, episode 103. This has been my NFL Week 2 recap with some just topics sprinkled in there. And you got to listen to me be a Marvel nerd for a couple seconds. So I hope you didn't cringe too hard about that. But thank you guys, as always. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you're listening to your podcast. Thank you guys for 10,000 listeners. That's crazy. Here's to the next 10,000. Spread the word about the show. Leave a like, comment, or subscribe, like I just said. Keep spreading that word, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great day and take care.